The Steam Deck works great out of the box, but if you spend some time going over different settings and customizing it, this is where you unlock its full potential. I'm still a fairly new Steam Deck user, so I haven't looked at every setting out there, but I wanted to share my top 10 tips and tricks that I found useful. Okay, one thing worth mentioning is that the Steam Deck OLED might be out of stock in your region. You can blame the AI companies for buying all the memory and storage. Anyways, the first thing I recommend is setting a charging limit. This can be done by pressing the Steam button and going to Settings, Power, and you'll see Battery Charging Limit. I normally get around 3 to 6 hours of playtime depending on the game, so I charge it quite a bit. But keeping the battery at 100% all the time wears it down faster. The default is 80%, but I keep mine at 90%. You do lose some playtime, but it's a trade-off for the battery's health. And I believe you can replace the battery with a little bit of patience. Alright, the quick access menu shows all these different settings, but performance is where I spend most of my time. You can pull up an overlay, which I set at number 2, and it'll show you some nerdy stuff. I like to see the FPS, CPU and RAM usage, and estimated battery remaining. You can go really minimal with just the FPS, or go full on crazy with all the stats. For certain games, I set a profile with custom settings for frame limit, TDP limit, and manual GPU clock. Changing these will mainly give you longer battery life. For modern games like Stellar Blade, I only set the frame limit to 45 FPS. Again, this will save battery, but give me a nice middle ground between 30 and 60 FPS. I leave the TDP and GPU at default settings because these games require more power. For older games and emulation, I set a power limit. So with Final Fantasy XIII, I can set the frame limit to 30 FPS, TDP limit at 5 watts, and GPU clock at 400 MHz. The game still runs smooth, and I can get up to 7 hours of battery on a full charge. And since some people are playing Pokemon Fire Red, I use these settings. It runs just as well as a Switch 2. It takes a little bit of messing around, but once you figure it out, it's worth the extra battery life. So Decky Loader is a free plugin manager that gives you a lot more customization. This won't be a step-by-step guide, but you need to install it through desktop mode. I'll link the video I use from Deck Wizard down below. Once it's running, you'll see a new section in quick access called Decky. Now, you have access to a community store with loads of plugins. I'll scroll down a bit so you can get an idea of what's available. I only have a few right now, but here are the ones I use. The most important one is Decky LSFG-VK, or Lossless Scaling Frame Generation. I didn't know this existed until several viewers left the comment on my first Steam Deck video. If you're interested in that review, I'll leave it in the cards and link it in the description box below. Shout out to the Steam Deck community who's been very kind and helpful. LSFG does two things. It'll create more frames to make the game feel smoother, and lowers the original resolution, then upscales it to improve performance. So if your game is running at 30 FPS, this plugin can output it to 60 by filling in the gaps. You'll need to buy lossless scaling from Steam, but it's pretty cheap and worth the money. To enable it, you copy a launch command and paste it into a game's launch options under Properties. When I play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth without the plugin, frame rates range from 40 to 50, and when the plugin is on, I can get double that. And same thing with Remake, high 80 to 90. It's much better than playing at a locked 30 FPS on the Switch 2. The settings I use are 2x FPS multiplier, 75% flow scale, and 45 FPS base cap. I also have these enabled, present mode, and performance. A few things to note is that there'll be a small amount of input lag, and HDR doesn't work. For most games like story and RPGs, I don't notice it, but for games that need precise timing, it's worth keeping an eye on. I tried Stellar Blade, and I can parry just fine, but my timing is a little bit early. HDR is currently broken even with the setting turned on. I even tried WSI, and it's either LSFG without HDR or HDR without LSFG. Hopefully this will be fixed in a future update. If you want to add custom artwork to regular and non-Steam games, SteamGridDB makes it super easy. Before I knew about this, I downloaded all the game art on a computer, copied them to a flash drive, went to desktop mode, and changed the artwork from there. Now, in game mode, I can hover over one, press start, and choose Change Artwork. These are all fan-made, and you'll find static images, animated, and mature stuff. So with a non-Steam game like Zenless Zone Zero, the artworks are blank. And with this plugin, You can add a new capsule all the way to an icon. To reset it, just go to Manage and tap the trash icon. The main reason I got a Steam Deck was for emulation, and EmuDeck lets me replay my childhood games. Just like with Decky Loader, you need to go to desktop mode, download the installer, and install it from there. Again, I'll link Deck Wizard's step-by-step guide below. I kept emulation separate, so my retro games will be under Emulation Station. EmuDeck handles most of the work for you, but you just need to copy your ROMs and BIOS files in the correct folder. I keep emulation files on a micro SD card and Steam Deck games on the M.2 SSD. Once you're done, you get a nice theme, and your games are organized by console. You can even download and apply different themes. And with the EmuDecky plugin, you have access to some quick controls like autosave, shaders, and aspect ratio. Chiaki-NG lets you remote play to your PS5 right on your Steam Deck. It's very similar to a PS Portal, minus the DualSense features. Installing it is as simple as going to desktop mode and searching for the app on Discover. After you set it up and log in, you have full access to your PS5. And I highly recommend that you install a controller layout. These have some buttons mapped for you. So the left touchpad is the PS button, and the back ones are set to mute and remote play, zoom in, and stretch to fill. One of my favorite things about the Steam Deck is desktop mode. It's a full Linux operating system, so you basically get a gaming handheld and mini PC in one. I mainly use this mode for when I want to take a break from gaming. I can browse the web, watch videos, and even install new apps from Discover. And like I mentioned before, you need to switch to desktop in order to install Decky Loader, EmuDeck, and non-Steam games. I do have a few installed like Arknight's Enfield, Zenless Zone Zero, and Honkai Star Rail. If you want a separate video on how to install non-Steam games, let me know in the comments. I do have 2 quick tips when using desktop mode. If your cursor disappears, just press and hold the Steam button and use the touchpad to bring it back. And to open the on-screen keyboard, press Steam plus X. If you have the OLED models, there is a chance of burn-in, so dim display and sleep are worth adjusting. Mine will dim after 1 minute of inactivity and sleep after 5 minutes. Towards the bottom, you find the option to enable downloads before sleeping and when the screen is off. You can pair wireless earbuds or headphones to the Steam Deck, but you can also use it as a Bluetooth speaker. You pair your phone just like any other Bluetooth device, and you can start listening to your own music while you game. EDM is great for weathering waves. Notification sounds or podcasts will also work. If there's one tip and trick you must use from this video, it's to install LSFG. It's literally a game changer, and it makes modern games a lot more playable. Let me know what are your favorite tips in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll be notified when I post new videos. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!